Let's talk a bit about UnitedHealth. You know, that dividend growth company that's down more than 50% from its all-time highs. Recently, we've seen some fraud allegations against the company from the Financial Times. And that reminds me of some of the insights that I've gained across my more than 10 years in investing and in business about how to trade on the news and how to invest when all this extra uncertainty is created. Because I think that with the current stock price, some things, they're not adding up. For example, recently 3 directors of this company bought shares. Previously, we've seen a lot of insider selling for this company. So why would they buy if they're under investigation for fraud, as the news allege? Also, if we look at how shorted UnitedHealth is, we see another red flag to the Financial Times thesis. It's 0.9% when I checked right before going out to the balcony here to smoke my cigar. And for those of you who have followed along on the channel and who are subscribed, you've seen me cover, for example, MPW, Medical Properties Trust, a company where there used to be a real short case. And with that company, still more than 30% of the float is shorted, and even larger amounts in the dark pools. Alright, so UnitedHealth, allegedly fraudulent, 0.9% short interest, and insiders are buying. Common sense leads me to question whether or not this story is true or if it's completely bogus. I looked at earnings per share as well for the company. They've been performing extremely well. I don't think it's a secret that health insurance in America is quite expensive, and some companies are gonna make a lot of money from that. Now, there was one major deviation, so if you look at it for yourself, when you do your due diligence, you will see that 1 year is very off. And this is because they had a cyber attack that year. So that caused earnings to be a bit off. That's a one-off item. So that's why they had a dip in earnings on a certain year. Now back to the alleged fraud. The case for fraud is involving a revenue segment for UnitedHealth that represents roughly 30% of all of their revenues. So it's quite substantial, should it be true. However, in my experience, dealing with the media, going way back, I find that they tend to finesse a bit on the truth. You could say that they tend to sensationalize, because, you know, as a YouTuber, I understand it drives click, it drives engagement, and at the end of the day, Financial Times, they require those ad dollars to pay salaries, to make the business go round. Now, if we go back into the day, back to when I was a young man in business school, I remember that the public service media called SVT, they went to my business school and did some interviews. Nothing special. They asked one freshman, just started, you know, he just done the initiation. They said, "What do you think about studying here?" And the guy said, "You know, it's all about delivery, with a happy face, all bright. super happy guy. Of course, you know, it's the day he's getting into business school. But then later in the evening, when the news went on television, the reporter in the studio say, all right, now we're going to the elite university in Sweden to see where the future business leader thinks about profit in the public sector. And then they just cut to this guy who say, it's all about delivery, as if he was stoked to make money off of sick people and daycare and all of this stuff that the news angled it towards being. The guy wasn't even asked a question. He was asked, what do you think about starting to study here? So the media, they've always been doing this, and we've seen short sellers more recently, for example Citron Research among others, utilizing very negative stories to drive down stock price to make money off of this. In some cases they get busted for market manipulation, and in some cases not. Now potentially, I'm not saying with certainty here, YouTube, there is maybe one person who helps plant this story in the Financial Times who perhaps had a position, a short position, one of those 0.9% against the stock. That could be one side of the story. It's too early to tell. And one of those things about the stock market that I always reiterate is that it hates uncertainty. And all this uncertainty, potential fraud, driving down stock price, down more than 50%. And in my case, my opinion, I think that this risk is indeed quite overstated. Now, of course, there could be fraud and then the bottom is not there. That could be one case. But my personal experience and the reporting that I have seen done from the media tends me to believe that, alright, this is perhaps sensationalized for clicks. And in that case, if earnings per share continue along the lines of management guidance, there's no major disruptions in the business model, well, then it looks like a nice dividend growth stock that you can purchase at a cheap price right now. So that's why I will be adding this stock to my dividend portfolio, as I have accumulated more than 5,000 shares in Orion Office REIT now. I know I had a goal of 4,000 originally, but the price was too cheap to ignore in that case as well. Now I'm happy with that bet size, and it's time for me to build another position in the dividend portfolio. Hopefully it reaches 100,000 American dollars soon. It's been almost a year. It goes a lot slower with these dividend stocks compared to the growth portfolio. You've seen it here on YouTube a few times now. Absolutely exploding as a young person, taking high risk, putting a lot of my value at risk. That has been rewarding, but now as I'm starting to look towards more retirement, well, I'm building this dividend portfolio that can be more stable, that can generate income in the form of dividends that I can use for consumption, buying cigars. Every AG&C dividend is a cigar in my case, $20-something. That's one cigar a month. Very sweet. And then rent coming from some of those REITs, and perhaps when UnitedHealth, if they continue to increase dividend as they do, that could be a nice trip to some exotic country when that dividend hits. So that was my opinion on UnitedHealth as of right now. Am I wrong on this? Is it fraud? Let me know in the comments below. Don't comment Luigi. I want the movie to stay up, you know. But as always, I hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now. Bye bye.